started as just another neighborhood hangout. You know the type. Plastic cups filled with cheap wine, everyone pretending they're closer than they actually are, and that unspoken game of who seems like they've got life the most together. I didn't think anything of it when the conversation shifted toward my husband, Ethan. Ethan's always been a bit socially awkward. Kind of guy who stumbles over his words or tells a joke that lands about 5 seconds too late. And yeah, I've rolled my eyes at him plenty of times, but that night, with a little too much rose in my system and the group already laughing at something else, I joined in. "We love Ethan," someone said, chuckling, "but he's, a little different." "Oh, you don't even know the half of it," I chimed in, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "You should see him try to fix stuff around the house. It's like a YouTube tutorial in reverse. Everything just ends up worse." The room erupted in laughter. Not the polite, "oh that's funny" laugh, but the real belly-deep kind that feeds your ego and makes you feel like the funniest person alive. So I kept going. I swear, sometimes I think Ethan's secretly auditioning for America's Funniest Home Videos. Like that time he tried to fix the garbage disposal and ended up flooding the kitchen. More laughs. Bigger this time. I glanced over at Ethan, who was manning the grill on the patio. He had this careful, neutral look on his face, like he wasn't really paying attention, but also like he'd heard every word. That should have been my clue to stop. But I didn't. "And don't even get me started on his sense of direction," I added, grinning. Ethan could get lost in his own driveway. He's got this GPS app now, but half the time he argues with it, like, "No, I know a better way." Spoiler alert, he doesn't. By now, everyone was cracking up. Even Sarah, the friend who rarely laughs at anything, was wiping tears from her eyes. For once, I felt like I was winning the moment. But then, Ethan put down the spatula. First, I thought he was just stepping away to grab something, but he walked inside instead. His shoulders were stiff, his jaw tight. Everyone went quiet. That's when he turned around and said it. "Funny stuff, huh?" His voice was calm, measured, but there was a sharp edge to it. "You know what's really funny? Spending 12 years trying to make someone happy, only to find out you're the punchline at a house party." The silence that followed was deafening. I tried to laugh it off. "Oh, come on, Ethan, don't be so dramatic. It was just jokes." But Ethan didn't laugh. He just shook his head, grabbed his keys, and walked out the front door without another word. The room stayed quiet for a long minute after he left, the weight of his words lingering like smoke. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "Yikes," she said softly. I don't know what stung more, Ethan walking out or realizing that maybe I wasn't as funny as I thought I was. That night, I sat in our living room, nursing a cold cup of tea and staring at my phone. I thought about calling him, but my pride stopped me. "He's overreacting," I told myself. It was just a joke. People tease their spouses all the time. But deep down, I knew the truth. I replayed his words over and over in my head, 12 years trying to make someone happy. Had I really made him feel like that? By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with messages. "Hey, you okay? That was intense last night. You and Ethan good?" Even Sarah texted me a photo she'd taken. Ethan, sitting alone on a bench at the park near our house. "Spotted him earlier," she wrote. "Maybe you should go talk to him." I spent the rest of the day pacing the house, trying to figure out what to do. Ethan didn't answer my calls or texts. By late afternoon, I decided to drive to the park. When I got there, he was gone. I sat on that same bench for what felt like forever, staring at the empty space where he'd been. A few days later, I came home to find a note on the kitchen counter. "Mia, I've been staying with a friend and doing some thinking." That night wasn't just about the jokes. It was about realizing that somewhere along the way we stopped being a team. I've tried to brush it off, to convince myself that things are fine, but they're not. I deserve more than being the butt of your jokes, and honestly, you deserve more than someone you don't respect. I've decided to take some time away to figure out what I want. I hope you'll do the same. Take care. Ethan. The finality of the note hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to tell him he was wrong. But deep down, I knew he wasn't. That night, I sat in the quiet house and let the weight of my actions sink in. It wasn't just the jokes. It was the years of taking him for granted, of poking at his flaws without thinking about how it made him feel. I'd spent so much time trying to get the laugh, trying to be the funny one, that I'd forgotten what it meant to be kind. The next morning, I called Ethan. He didn't pick up, but I left a message anyway. Hey, I'm sorry. For everything. I hope we can talk soon. And now? Now I wait. Because if I've learned anything from this, it's that sometimes the only thing you can do is own your mistakes and hope it's not too late to make things right. The days after Ethan's note felt like walking through a fog. Everything was muted, sounds, colors, even my own thoughts. I'd go through the motions, work, errands, scrolling my phone late at night, but my mind kept circling back to that note. To his words. We stopped being a team. I thought back to the early years, the nights we'd spend talking about nothing and everything, laughing until our stomachs hurt, making plans that felt so big and bright. Somewhere along the way, those nights had been replaced with Netflix and silence, conversations about what we needed from the store instead of what we needed from each other. And worse, I hadn't even noticed when it happened. On the fourth day, I worked up the courage to call him again. My heart sank when it went straight to voicemail, but I left another message. Ethan, it's me. I get it. I really do. But I miss you and I just want to talk. Please. The silence afterward was unbearable. The house felt cavernous without him there, even though it hadn't been that long. Every creak, every distant hum of traffic outside seemed to mock me. The emptiness was louder than anything I'd ever experienced. A week later, there was still no word from him. I'd stopped texting, stopped calling. It felt pointless, and I didn't want to push him further away. Instead, I started trying to figure out why. Not just why he left, but why I'd let myself become the kind of person who could push someone away like that in the first place. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a session with a therapist. Sitting in that office, across from a woman with kind eyes and a notebook balanced on her lap, I felt exposed in a way I wasn't prepared for. I didn't know where to start, so I just let the words tumble out. I messed up. I've been messing up for a while, actually. And I didn't even see it until it was too late. She nodded, not interrupting, just letting me talk. It wasn't just that night. That night was bad, but it was everything leading up to it. The jokes, the little digs. I thought they were harmless. I thought they were funny. But I think I was using them to, feel better about myself. To hide the fact that maybe I wasn't as happy as I wanted to be. Her pen moved lightly over the page. Why do you think that is? I shrugged, even though I knew. Because it was easier to poke fun at him than to admit that I felt stuck. That we both felt stuck. She looked at me for a moment, her expression soft but serious. Do you love him? Question hit harder than I expected. Of course I do, I said quickly. Too quickly. Then why didn't you tell him how you were feeling? I didn't have an answer. Not then. Therapy became a weekly thing. First, I thought it would be about fixing Ethan and me, but it quickly became clear that there was a lot I needed to fix about myself first. My insecurities, my need for validation, the walls I'd put up over the years without even realizing it. It was uncomfortable to say the least, but it felt necessary. And then, 2 weeks after Ethan's note, my phone buzzed. It was him. Can we meet? I stared at the message for what felt like forever, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately, to rush to wherever he was and beg for forgiveness. But another part of me, the part that had been sitting in therapy and unpacking my own baggage, knew that wasn't the right move. Instead, I typed back. Yes. When and where? We met at a small coffee shop we used to go to when we first started dating. I got there early, my hands wrapped around a steaming mug, trying to stop them from shaking. When Ethan walked in, my breath caught. He looked the same but different. More grounded, maybe. Or maybe that was just my guilt coloring everything. Hey, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Hey. The silence stretched between us, heavy but not hostile. Finally, he spoke. I didn't want to leave things the way I did. But I needed space to think. I nodded, my throat too tight to respond. I've been staying at Matt's place, he continued. He's been helpful. Gave me a lot to think about. Like what? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, then met my eyes. Like whether or not us is something we can fix. Whether we should. The words hit like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to stay calm. And what do you think? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I think it depends. On a lot of things. On whether we're both willing to do the work. On whether we can learn to see each other again. I'm willing, I said quickly, too quickly. Ethan, I know I messed up. I know I made you feel small, and I hate that I did that. But I want to fix it. I want to fix us. He studied me for a long moment. Why now? 'Cause I finally see it. I see what I've been doing, how I've been tearing you down instead of building us up. I've been going to therapy, Ethan. I'm trying to understand why I've been this way. And I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to try. For you. For us. He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "'Kay," he said finally. "Let's see where this goes." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a guarantee. But it was a start. And sometimes that's enough.